My name is James, 33 years old, office manager for a mid-sized logistics firm in Utrecht. Yes, the kind of job where synergy and bandwidth are used unironically in meetings, and where my greatest daily triumph is getting the coffee machine to work before 9 a.m. I met Tori in April 2019. A blind date, of all the ridiculous, outdated things. My friend Lena, ever the romantic, had been badgering me for weeks. "You're too closed off, James," she'd said over drinks one evening. "You treat your calendar like a fortress, let someone in." I'd just come out of a 2-year relationship that ended not with a bang but with a slow, quiet deflation, like a balloon left in a corner, still technically intact, but no longer floating. I wasn't looking for anything. But Lena was relentless, and truth be told, I was lonely in that specific modern way, surrounded by people, connected digitally, yet utterly alone in my own apartment most nights. She set us up in Maastricht, neutral ground, she said, no pressure. I remember the train ride down, the flat Dutch landscape giving way to rolling hills, limestone cliffs, and the sudden intimacy of narrow streets. Maastricht has always felt like a secret the rest of the Netherlands forgot to tell. Cobblestones worn smooth by centuries, the Maas River curling through the city like a lazy cat, the scent of roasted almonds and damp wool in the air. It was early spring, still chilly enough that I wore my navy peacoat and regretted not bringing gloves. And then I saw her. She was sitting alone at a small table outside Café Chic, tucked beneath a striped awning, wrapped in a red scarf so vivid it seemed to pulse against the gray afternoon. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She looked up as I approached, eyes wide for a second, nervous maybe, and then she smiled. Not a practice smile, a real one, the kind that starts in the eyes. "James?" she asked, standing. "Yeah, you must be Tori." She laughed, a soft, breathy sound, and extended her hand. Then immediately pulled it back, flustered. "Sorry, that felt weird, like a job interview." We sat, ordered coffee, and then we talked. For 3 hours. About her quitting her marketing job, to figure out what actually makes me feel alive. About my love-hate relationship with spreadsheets. About how neither of us had ever been south of Eindhoven before. She spoke with this quiet intensity, hands gesturing as if shaping her thoughts in the air. I found myself leaning in, forgetting to check my phone, forgetting I'd promised myself not to get attached. And then this is the part that still feels like fate. We realized we both lived in Utrecht. Same city. She lived 3 tram stops from me, near the botanical gardens. We'd probably passed each other on the Ude Gracht a dozen times without knowing. She even went to Delali, that little bakery with the blue awning I frequented every Sunday for their almond croissants. "You're kidding," I said, laughing. "I buy 2 every week and pretend it's self-care." "Same," she said, eyes lighting up. "Except I eat both in one sitting, and then feel guilty for 3 days." We walked along the Maas afterward, the river dark and shimmering under streetlights, the cold air sharp in our lungs. She told me she was terrified of becoming someone who settled just to avoid being alone. I told her I was scared of giving everything to someone who didn't know they wanted it. We stopped near the Sint Serva Asbrug, the old stone arch looming above us, and she turned to me, her breath visible in the air. "I don't usually do this," she said softly. "Do what?" "This talking. Feeling like I can be honest." I kissed her then, not dramatically, just a quiet press of lips, tentative and warm, like we were both testing whether the connection was real or just the magic of the night. When I pulled back, she was smiling again. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every word, every glance, every second of that walk. I told myself it was just a nice evening, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The next year, our year, was the most alive I'd ever felt. We fell into a rhythm almost immediately. Weekends alternating between Utrecht and Maastricht. She loved the old city, the way time seemed to slow there, the way strangers said. I'd drive down on Friday evenings, windows down, a playlist I'd titled Tori's Mood, queued up mostly Bon Iver, Phoebe Bridgers, and this one obscure Dutch singer she loved. She'd meet me at the station with that red scarf and a paper bag of stroopwafels, her eyes lighting up like I was a surprise she hadn't expected, but was glad to find. In Utrecht our routines were quieter but no less intimate. She'd sprawl on my couch with a sketchbook, doodling on napkins, the backs of envelopes, even my grocery lists, whimsical birds' abstract faces, little constellations only she understood. I'd cook while she narrated her day in that soft meandering way of hers, jumping from a dream she'd had to a podcast she'd heard to a memory from childhood, all in one breath. She wasn't working, still figuring things out, and though she never asked outright, I covered rent when her savings ran low, paid for dinners, weekend trips to Ghent or Bruges, not because I felt obligated, but because I wanted her to feel safe, to have space to breathe, to create, to become whoever she was meant to be. She'd thank me in small ways, leaving notes in my lunchbox, drawing tiny hearts in the steam on my bathroom mirror, wrapping her arms around me from behind, while I washed dishes and whispering, "You're my favorite person," and I believed her. I really did. But even in the warmth, there were shadows. Tori was brilliant, sharp, creative, full of ideas, but she carried a deep insecurity, like she was always one misstep away from proving everyone right who'd ever doubted her. She'd get frustrated when her art didn't land, when a gallery didn't respond, when she compared herself to peers who seemed to have it all figured out. I'd try to reassure her, to remind her of her talent, but sometimes she'd pull away saying, "You don't get it. You've always known who you are." And maybe she was right. I'm structured, predictable. I color code my calendar, meal plan on Sundays, keep a backup key taped under my desk at work. Tori thrived in chaos. She'd rearrange my bookshelf for vibes, leave dishes in the sink for days, disappear for afternoon walks without telling me where she was going. At first I found it endearing, romantic even, the artist to my accountant. But over time the differences started to chafe. She'd cancel plans last minute, saying she needed space to think. I'd find her staring out the window for hours, phone in hand, expression unreadable. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing, just tired." But her eyes would dart away, and I'd feel that familiar knot of helplessness tighten somewhere deep inside. Still, I held on, because when she laughed, really laughed, the whole room warmed, because she remembered how I took my coffee black, one sugar, because once during a thunderstorm, she held my hand the whole night, whispering, "It's okay, I've got you," even though I was the one who hated storms. And because for a while, it felt like we were building something real. Then came our 1-year anniversary. She suggested we go back to Maastricht. Full circle, she said, her voice light, but there was something guarded in her eyes I couldn't place. I agreed immediately. I booked the same B&B near the Vristhof, the one with the creaky wooden floors and the view of the basilica. I even bought a small silver bracelet, nothing flashy, just a thin chain with a single river stone, as a gift. The city was different in late April, warmer, flowers blooming in window boxes, cafe terraces full again, the mass glinting under a pale sun. But Tori was distant from the moment we arrived. She smiled, made small talk, held my hand, but it felt performative, like she was playing a role she no longer believed in. That first night, over bitterballen and a bottle of local wine, she kept glancing at her phone, texting under the table, smiling at her screen like it held secrets. I wasn't allowed to know. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "No one," she said too quickly. Then after a pause, "Just someone from an art event last week. He's interesting." I didn't push, but something in me tightened. The next evening we walked along the Maas, the same path as our first night. The air was soft, scented with lilacs, from a nearby garden. Tourists strolled by, laughing. It should have been perfect. Instead she stopped near the Cerveris Bridge, the same spot where we'd kissed a year before, and turned to me. "I feel stuck," she said, her voice low, not looking at me. "With us, with everything, my life, who I am when I'm with you." The words hit like a physical blow. "What does that mean?" She finally met my eyes. Hers were glistening. "I kissed someone last week." Silence. Not the comfortable kind we used to share, but a thick, suffocating quiet. The river kept flowing. A couple passed by, holding hands, oblivious. I stood there numb, while she explained, haltingly, that it was at a gallery opening in Amsterdam, then drinks afterward, and it just happened. She cried, said she didn't mean to hurt me, said she still cared. But cared isn't enough when your heart's been handed back in pieces. We ended it there on that bridge. No shouting, no blame. Just two people who'd loved each other in a way that couldn't survive the weight of uncertainty. She went back to Utrecht that night. I stayed in Maastricht for 3 more days, walking the same streets, drinking at the same cafes, hoping stupidly that if I retraced our steps, I'd find the version of us that still worked. I didn't. The months after were a blur of grief disguised as routine. I kept her coffee mug in the cabinet for 6 months, before I finally put it in a box. Her Spotify playlist still autoplays sometimes, when I'm cooking. I see her favorite bakery every Sunday on my walk and have to look away. Friends tried to set me up again. I went on one date. It felt like wearing someone else's clothes. I learned a lot in the silence. That love isn't always enough. That timing matters more than passion. That sometimes, people love you only through the version of themselves that exists at that exact moment. And when they outgrow that version, you get left behind. Not because you weren't enough, but because they needed to become someone. Last month I went back to Maastricht. Just me, a notebook, and the kind of ache that's dulled but never gone. I sat at that same cafe terrace outside Schiek, ordered a black coffee, watched the Maas ripple under the afternoon sun. Tourists laughed nearby. A woman walked past in a red scarf. For a second my heart leapt. Then she turned, and it wasn't her. I don't know if Tori ever thinks of me, if she drives past our old street in Utrecht, and wonders what might have been, if she ever regrets that kiss, or if it was just the push she needed to finally leave. All I know is this: I gave her my best year, and sometimes, that's all you get. I still look for her in every red scarf I see.